Colonel Amara Chen stood motionless on the university lawn as the sky above Shanghai tore open like burning paper. Her daughter's graduation cap tumbled forgotten to the grass as obsidian ships, each larger than the financial district's tallest skyscrapers, emerged through rippling tears in reality. The crowd's initial gasps morphed into screams as smaller craft detached from the behemoths, descending in perfect geometric formations. "Mom, what's happening?" Lisa's voice barely registered above the chaos. Before Chen could answer, the secure comm unit in her pocket vibrated with a pattern she'd hoped never to feel. Priority Alpha, global threat. 20 years in special operations had prepared her for countless scenarios, but nothing quite like this. "Get to the emergency shelters beneath the library," Chen instructed, squeezing her daughter's shoulders. "I'll find you when I can." "But..." "Now, Lisa." The colonel's voice left no room for argument. As her daughter reluctantly joined the stream of panicked graduates, Chen slipped away, already connecting to the encrypted military channel. Across the planet, the scenario repeated itself. Massive ships materializing over major cities, their hulls reflecting sunlight in prismatic patterns. Global communications faltered, then stabilized as the aliens hijacked the signal. On every screen, from Times Square to the smallest village smartphones, a figure appeared. The being stood easily 8 feet tall, with translucent crystalline skin that revealed complex internal light patterns pulsing beneath. When it spoke, its voice resonated with an unsettling harmonic quality. "People of Earth, I am War Prince Vexmore of the Kinteri Empire. Your planet now falls under our dominion. 17 worlds have accepted our rule. You will be the 18th. You have 72 hours to surrender your governmental authority or face planetary pacification." 6 hours later, Chen found herself in the underground emergency United Nations Security Council chamber in Geneva, surrounded by the highest-ranking military and political leaders from around the world. Preliminary reports scrolled across her tablet. Defense installations worldwide monitoring the alien vessels, civilian panic, martial law declarations in 47 countries. "Their technology is beyond anything in our arsenal," General Santos said, pointing to satellite imagery of one ship effortlessly absorbing a desperate missile launch from North Korea. Direct confrontation would be suicide. The chamber doors slid open as the Kinteri delegation arrived. 3 towering crystalline figures, their internal lights pulsing in synchronized patterns. War Prince Vexmore's gaze swept the room, briefly pausing on Chen and the other female officers before focusing exclusively on the male leaders. "We will accept your surrender now," Vexmore announced without preamble. "Your military resources will be cataloged and appropriated. Resistance is unnecessary and wasteful." General Santos gestured toward Chen. "Colonel Chen commands our most elite special operations unit. Perhaps she can provide perspective on our defensive capabilities." The War Prince turned his back to Chen. "We do not discuss matters of war with birth vessels," he stated flatly. "They lack the capacity for strategic thought. Bring forth your male combat leaders." A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Chen exchanged glances with Captain Rousseau from French intelligence and Major Tanaka from Japanese Special Forces, both women whose combat records spoke for themselves. Then, unexpectedly, Chen laughed, a short, confident sound that drew every eye in the room. "Then you've already lost," she said, rising to her feet. "You don't even know what you're fighting. You mistake biological reality for military strategy." Vexmore replied dismissively. "Our studies of your broadcasts indicate clear male dominance in combat functions." "Your studies are incomplete," Chen replied. "But please, maintain that assumption. It will make our job much easier." As the Kinteri delegation departed with their demands, U.S. Secretary of Defense Blackwood held Chen back, slipping a small quantum-encrypted drive into her hand. "Operation Artemis is now active," he whispered. "The Ghost Wolves deploy in 6 hours. The President has authorized full autonomy and resource allocation." Chen's expression remained neutral, but her pulse quickened. The 87th Battalion, her Ghost Wolves, had been training for hypothetical extraterrestrial threats for 5 years, hidden from public knowledge, and even most military oversight. "And sir," she asked quietly, "the special combat parameters?" Blackwood nodded grimly. "Confirmed. Initial analysis of their behavior validates our theory. Use it against them." As Chen left the chamber, alerts flashed across her comm unit. The Kinteri ships had begun positioning over major military installations worldwide. The invasion's first phase was beginning. She placed a secure call to Major Diana Kovac, her second-in-command. "Diana, activate the Wolves. Convergence Point, Athena Complex, Alaska. And Diana, tell them to pack for war." The Athena Complex hummed with activity as Colonel Chen descended in the magnetic elevator, dropping 3 miles beneath the Alaskan permafrost. The facility had been constructed in secret, funded through black budgets spread across 17 countries. Its existence represented humanity's contingency plan for extraterrestrial contact, one based not on optimistic diplomatic protocols, but on the stark reality of potential conflict. The elevator doors opened to controlled chaos, equipment being prepped, weapons calibrated, and 36 women in unmarked combat gear moving with precision through their preparations. Chen spotted Major Diana Kovac at the central holotable, her tall frame bent over tactical displays, showing Kinteri ship positions. "They've established beachheads on all continents," Kovac reported without looking up, her Croatian accent more pronounced under stress. "Primarily near water sources. Satellite imagery shows they're deploying some kind of extraction technology." Chen nodded, watching the real-time feed of crystalline structures emerging from the alien landing craft. And the conventional military response. As expected, 17% casualties so far. Their crystal armor absorbs kinetic impacts, and energy weapons only seem to make them stronger. Kovac finally looked up, dark circles under her eyes. "Your theory was right. Every engagement report notes the same thing. They only target male combatants first, consistently underestimating female soldiers until it's too late. Small advantage, but we'll take it," Chen replied, surveying the room. "Status on the team." Before Kovac could answer, her personal comm chimed. The Major's expression hardened as she read the message. "It's Eliza. She says she can't do this anymore. The waiting and wondering if you're dead part." She pocketed the device, her sniper's eyes betraying nothing. "Apparently we're done. Again." Chen squeezed her shoulder. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Relationships are like shots. Timing matters more than intent." Kovac straightened, compartmentalizing with practiced efficiency. "Team status. Al-Salih's recalibrating our comms to penetrate their quantum interference. Adebayo's finalizing the specialized munitions. Zhang is." She gestured toward the training arena where a small figure moved like liquid lightning between combat drones. Binge Zhang. In the arena, Sergeant Zhang Wei demolished the 6th combat drone with a strike to its central processor. 5 years in Chinese special forces followed by 3 with the Ghost Wolves had honed her into something beyond conventional soldiers. The facility psychologist had once described her as someone who experiences combat as her native language. She hadn't spoken a word since the Bangkok operation went wrong, but her silence communicated more than most people's speeches. Captain Zainab Al-Salih entered the command center, her workstation clutched under one arm. The electronic warfare specialist had grown up in Jerusalem, her Israeli mother and Palestinian father giving her a perspective on conflict few could match, and making her an outsider everywhere. That outsider status had made her the team's best infiltration specialist. "I've isolated their communication frequencies," Al-Salih announced, setting up her equipment. "They're using quantum-entangled crystalline nodes, but there's a pattern to the entanglement. Give me another hour, and I can piggyback our signals on their network." Lieutenant Nkechi Adebayo arrived last, pushing a cart of prototype weapons. The Nigerian demolitions expert had been testing new compounds when the invasion began. "These should work," she said, lifting a grenade with an unusual blue glow. Resonance charges calibrated to their crystalline structure. Like hitting crystal with the right sound frequency, it should shatter rather than absorb. Chen gathered them around the holotable, activating the classified mission brief. A three-dimensional rendering of the massive Kentari command ship appeared, rotating slowly. Operation Ghost Hunt, she began. While Earth's conventional forces engage the Kentari ground troops, we infiltrate their command vessel. Objectives: intelligence acquisition on their battle plans, technology assessment, and if possible, capture of a high-ranking officer. Capture. Kovac raised an eyebrow. These things are twice our size and apparently bulletproof. Everything has a weakness, Chen replied. We just need to find it. And speaking of weaknesses, she activated another display showing thermal imaging of Kentari warriors. Their sensory systems seem calibrated specifically for male human biological signatures. Our thermal and hormone profiles registered differently on their scanners. El Sali smiled for the first time since the invasion. So we're going in with built-in camouflage. Precisely, Chen confirmed. We leave in 3 hours. Standard ghost protocol. If any of us are captured, we don't exist. No country acknowledges us. As the team dispersed to final preparations, Chen's secure comm vibrated. The message was brief. Shanghai University under direct Kentari control. All civilians being processed. Status of Lisa Chen unknown. She closed her eyes for just a moment, centering herself. Then she rejoined her team. The message locked away behind a compartmentalized wall, all special operators built between mission and personal concerns. War had come to Earth. The Ghost Wolves would answer. The Ghost Wolves stealth shuttle cut through low orbit, its experimental metamaterial hull absorbing radar and lidar, while heat sinks cooled its thermal signature to match the surrounding space. Inside, the team performed final equipment checks in near silence, each woman wrapped in her own pre-mission ritual. Colonel Chen studied real-time feeds from Earth's surface. Precisely orchestrated nuclear detonations had just eliminated 17 critical military installations worldwide. A scorched earth protocol designed to deny the Kentari access to humanity's most advanced weapons while drawing their attention away from the approaching shuttle. They're taking the bait, Captain El Sali confirmed, one hand pressed to her neural interface headset. Kentari command frequencies show all attention directed toward the explosions. They're deploying response units to each site. Major Kovac finished assembling her custom long-range precision rifle. Convenient that they're so predictable. Hierarchical species often are. El Sali replied. Their strategies followed the same patterns as their social structure. Rigid, linear, top-down. Through the viewport, the Kentari command ship loomed. A crystalline cathedral structure spanning nearly 2 kilometers, its surface fracturing sunlight into prismatic patterns. Lieutenant Adebayo whistled softly. That's not just a warship, she observed. Those formations, it's practically a mobile ecosystem. The shuttle's autopilot engaged its final approach trajectory, aiming for a maintenance access port identified through analysis of the ship's external structure. Then alarms blared as proximity sensors detected a sudden energy spike. Solar flare. El Sali shouted, fingers flying across her console. Class X9, coming right at us. Evasive. Chen began, but too late. The electromagnetic pulse from the flare slammed into the shuttle, overwhelming its shields and frying critical systems. Warning lights flooded the cabin as the craft tumbled toward the Kentari vessel. We've lost stealth and navigation, the pilot reported, wrestling with manual controls. Propulsion at 30%. Chen made a split-second decision. Aim for Sector 7 Gamma, the waste reclamation port. It's our only chance. The shuttle scraped along the crystalline hull, shedding parts before crashing through an organic-looking valve structure. It skidded to a halt inside a cavernous chamber filled with slowly pulsing tubular systems. Everyone still breathing? Chen asked, unstrapping from her harness. The team sounded off, all alive, though the pilot had suffered a broken arm. New plan. Al-Sali, how long until they detect us? Already have, she answered grimly. Security protocols activating throughout this sector. But her expression shifted to surprise. They're not pinpointing our location. The bioscanners keep sweeping past us. Sergeant Zhang, who had been examining a damaged panel near the shuttle's exit, suddenly turned, eyes wide. She pointed to the readout on her tactical wrist display, thermal imaging showing the team's heat signatures against the background of the ship. Unlike male human thermal patterns, which appeared clearly distinct, their signatures blended partially with the ambient temperature of the vessel. We're temperature ghosts to them, Kovac realized. Their detection systems must be calibrated for male physiology. A distant sound of crystalline movement echoed through the chamber. Chen motioned the team into formation. Advantage identified. Let's move before they manually sweep the area. Al-Sali, can you still access their network? Partially. We're on a lower security level than planned, but I can track patrol movements and access basic ship schematics. Extraction in 4 hours at these coordinates. Chen marked a location several kilometers away. Primary objective remains. We need those battle plans. Let's move. The team infiltrated deeper into the ship, navigating through pulsing crystalline corridors that seemed partially alive. 20 minutes in, they encountered their first Kentari patrol. 4 warriors with staff-like weapons. Lieutenant Adebayo readied one of her experimental resonance charges, but Zhang held up a hand, motioning for patience. The patrol approached their position, crystalline eyes sweeping the corridor, and walked past without slowing, despite the team being partially visible in an alcove. Their visual processing must be linked to their bioscanners, whispered Al-Sali. If the scanners don't flag us as threats, they literally don't see us as combatants. Perfect, Chen replied, allowing herself a small smile. We're not just ghosts. We're invisible. The moment of victory was short-lived. As they approached a junction, a sudden alarm pulsed through the ship. Not for them, but for a new development on Earth. On a crystalline display panel, they watched Kentari forces converging on Shanghai University. Chen's expression hardened, but her voice remained steady. Stay focused. We have a world to save. The mission clock was ticking. General Hannigan slammed his fist on the Pentagon war room table, sending tactical displays flickering. The 87th Battalion was deployed without proper authorization. I want Colonel Chen court-martialed the moment, if she returns. Secretary of Defense Blackwood remained unmoved. The Ghost Wolves operation was authorized at the highest level. Perhaps if you'd spent less time questioning the viability of female combat units and more time developing effective countermeasures against the Kentari, we wouldn't need such desperate measures. The argument was interrupted by a communications officer. Sir, we're receiving data packets from the Kentari command ship. It's the Wolves, sir. On screens worldwide, military analysts watched in astonishment as Kentari battle plans flooded secure channels, deployment schedules, weapons capabilities, and most crucially, the location of their primary Earth base in the Sahara Desert. They did it, Blackwood whispered. But how are they transmitting? In the Kentari vessel's neural core, Lieutenant Adebayo worked feverishly to secure an escape route while Zhang stood guard. Captain Al-Sali had hardwired herself directly into the ship's crystal matrix, her neural interface creating a temporary bridge between human and alien technology. Almost done. Al-Sali gasped, blood trickling from her nose as the alien data architecture stressed her neural pathways beyond design limits. There's something else here, something massive beneath the Sahara. Not just a base. They're building some kind of extraction device. Colonel Chen and Major Kovac defended the corridor intersection, each Kentari patrol growing increasingly erratic as the ship's systems registered intruders they couldn't properly track. We've got maybe 5 minutes before they lock down this sector, Kovac warned, her rifle configuring for another shot. Something's changing in their search pattern. A crystalline warrior suddenly charged their position, the first to directly attack despite the scanner confusion. Kovac's shot penetrated its chest, but unlike previous encounters, the crystal merely cracked rather than shattering. They're adapting, Chen realized. Al-Sali, status. Transmission complete, but I found something. Her words cut off as the ship lurched, emergency protocols engaging. They know we're here now. They're flooding this section with some kind of suppression gas. Extraction route compromised, Adebayo reported. Alternative paths. Zhang suddenly moved, gesturing urgently toward a maintenance shaft barely visible behind crystalline growth. The team followed, Al-Sali barely conscious and supported between Chen and Kovac. What did you find? Chen asked as they navigated the narrow passage. Al-Sali's voice was weak. The water extraction. It's not just water. There's something in Earth's oceans they need. Trace elements that act as catalysts for their reproduction. They're not just invading. They're harvesting. The revelation settled heavily as they emerged in a lower hangar bay. Crystalline craft of various sizes stood in neat rows, guarded by only minimal forces, the Kentari still allocating security resources inefficiently due to their confusion about the intruder's nature. Zhang pointed to a small transport vessel, then made a series of hand gestures. Adebayo nodded in understanding. She says she can fly it. These ships respond to crystalline resonance, and she's observed the activation sequences. How would she know? Chen began, but there was no time for questions. Alarms blared throughout the hangar as they raced toward the transport. Zhang's fingers danced across the crystalline control panel, producing specific tones that made the vessel hum to life. As Kentari warriors flooded the hangar, the stolen ship lifted off, shields engaging just as energy weapons converged on their position. We need to get this intelligence to Earth Command immediately, Chen said, stabilizing Al-Sali in a crash sheet, and prepare the second phase. Second phase? Kovac asked. Operation Valkyrie. Full deployment of all female combat units globally, targeting the Sahara base. Chen's expression was grim but determined. We've identified their blind spot. Now we exploit it completely. The stolen vessel accelerated away from the command ship, its crystalline propulsion leaving a trail of prismatic light as it descended toward Earth. Behind them, the massive Kentari vessel began repositioning, its weapon systems charging. They're targeting our primary military leadership, Al-Sali murmured, still connected to traces of their network. Washington, Moscow, Beijing. Let them, Chen replied, a dangerous edge in her voice. They still don't understand who they're really fighting. On Earth, as the first reports from the Ghost Wolves mission reached military command, a global reorganization began. Female soldiers moving to frontline positions while their male counterparts created diversionary operations. The Kentari's fundamental misunderstanding of human gender dynamics was becoming their greatest strategic vulnerability. The tide was about to turn. The interrogation facility beneath the Rocky Mountains had been designed for extraordinary rendition of human terrorists, not 8-foot crystalline aliens. Colonel Chen observed through one-way glass as technicians adjusted environmental controls in Sub-Commander Vextar's cell, carefully maintaining the precise temperature and humidity required for his crystalline biology. His molecular structure is degrading despite our best efforts, Dr. Whitmore reported, gesturing to microscopic fractures appearing across the alien surface. We need to understand his physiological requirements better, or we'll lose him within 72 hours. Has he spoken? Chen asked. Only to the male technicians, and then only to demand release. He refuses to acknowledge female personnel entirely. Chen nodded. Begin Protocol Athena. Protocol Athena was simple but psychologically devastating. From this moment forward, Vextar would interact exclusively with female personnel. His meals, medical attention, and interrogation would all come from women. The males he considered worthy of communication would vanish entirely from his environment. 36 hours of isolation later, Chen entered the cell alone, unarmed, wearing a simple military uniform with no insignia. Vextar sat perfectly still in the center of the room, internal lights pulsing slowly beneath his crystalline surface. "I will speak only to your commanders," he stated without turning. Chen circled to face him directly. "I am the commander." The alien's crystalline features registered nothing comparable to human emotion, but the pulse of his internal lights quickened. "Impossible. Females cannot command." Rather than argue, Chen activated a wall display showing live combat footage. Female Special Forces units engaging Kentari patrols worldwide, exploiting their detection blind spot with devastating efficiency. "Your warriors died because of your misconceptions," she said simply. "Your scanners fail to detect us properly. Your tactics don't account for us. Your entire strategic framework collapses because you refuse to see what's in front of you." Vextar turned away from the display. "Anomalies. Aberrations. Yet here I stand," Chen replied. "Your empire faces defeat because of a failure of imagination." She left without another word, implementing the next phase of the protocol. Throughout the day, Vextar received a series of female visitors, each demonstrating combat expertise. Major Kovac entered to calibrate monitoring equipment, casually shooting targets on the far wall without looking. Lieutenant Adebayo inspected the cell's structural integrity, precisely controlling microfractures in the material with specialized tools. In the observation room, Chen watched Vextar's biometric readings with Dr. Whitmore. "His crystalline resonance is shifting." "What does that indicate?" "Cognitive dissonance," the scientist replied. "His worldview and observed reality are in conflict. We're approaching a breakthrough." On the fourth day, Chen returned to find Vextar standing at the cell's edge. "Your strategy is transparent," he said. "Psychological recalibration through contradiction of established hierarchy." "Is it working?" Chen asked simply. The crystalline being's internal lights pulsed unevenly. "You command the female warriors who infiltrated our command ship." "I do." "Then you have earned." He seemed to struggle with the concept. Tactical acknowledgement. It wasn't respect, but it was enough. Chen activated a holographic display of Earth. The Sahara facility. What is its true purpose? Something shifted in Vextar's posture. A subtle change only noticeable to someone trained to read microexpressions across species. "You know, the water extraction contains compounds essential for your reproduction. But there's more," Chen pressed. "The facility's energy signature exceeds requirements for mere extraction." For the first time, Vextar faced her directly. "Your world is the 18th we have harvested, but it is the first to effectively resist. This contradicts established patterns." "You've been defeated before," Chen said, not a question but a statement based on intelligence gleaned from the command ship. Vextar's crystalline surface fractured slightly, the equivalent of a flinch. "The Maroxi. They discovered the resonance weakness in our biology. Their sonic weapons shattered entire battalions." His lights pulsed rapidly. "But they are extinct now. We ensured it." Before Chen could press further, alarms blared throughout the facility. Captain Al-Sali burst into the room, her neural interface headset glowing urgently. "Empress ship detected entering orbit," she reported breathlessly. "Massive energy signatures, unlike anything we've seen." "And Colonel," she hesitated, "they've deployed female warriors." Vextar's reaction was immediate, his entire crystalline form brightening with what could only be described as fear. "The matriarchs have come," he whispered. "You cannot comprehend what this means." "Then enlighten me," Chen demanded. The sub-commander's voice took on a reverent tone. "The Empress does not leave the homeworld unless existence itself is threatened. They do not deploy the Shatterglass warriors unless total eradication is authorized." His lights dimmed to near darkness. "Your world is condemned." Chen's comm unit pinged with an encrypted message. "Shanghai sector under direct assault from new Kentari forces. University Research Center primary target. Casualty reports estimated at 90%. Her daughter's last known location." Chen locked eyes with Vextar, allowing him to see the cold fury in her gaze. "You still don't understand humans," she said quietly. "When we're threatened, we don't surrender. We evolve." She turned to Al-Salih. "Initiate Operation Valkyrie Phase 2. All ghost wolves deploy immediately." To Vextar, she added, "You fear your empress. Wait until you see what Earth's daughters can do when protecting their home." Part 6. Operation Valkyrie. The Sahara shimmered under moonlight as Major Kovac adjusted her position on the ridge overlooking the Kentari extraction facility. The massive crystalline structure rose from the desert like an ancient temple, its spires reaching nearly half a kilometer into the night sky. Energy pulses rhythmically traveled from its base deep into the ground where, satellite imagery confirmed, the aliens had reached the Nubian Aquifer, one of Earth's largest underground water reserves. "Eagle's nest established," Kovac whispered into her comm. "I have visual on all approach vectors." In her tactical display, green dots appeared across the desert landscape. 32 female Special Forces operators from 17 countries converging on the facility. Operation Valkyrie had deployed similar strike teams to every major Kentari installation worldwide, all moving simultaneously under the cover of darkness. "Ghost actual to all units," Colonel Chen's voice came through the secure channel. "Phase 2 parameters confirmed. Kentari female warriors have different energy signatures and detection capabilities. Standard ghost protocol will not be effective. Adapt and overcome." Kovac adjusted her rifle's resonance settings, recalibrating based on data from Vextar's interrogation. The crystalline structure of female Kentari contained different harmonic frequencies, requiring precision adjustments to exploit their weaknesses. "Command, this is Dagger Team," came Lieutenant Adebayo's voice from the facility's eastern perimeter. "We've encountered new defense mechanisms, some kind of crystalline proximity mines. They're singing." "Singing?" Chen questioned. "Emitting harmonic tones that seem to be communicating with the main structure. They're mapping our positions despite ghost protocol." Kovac scanned the perimeter through her scope, identifying the glittering objects Adebayo described. They pulsed with an internal light that shifted whenever a human approached, like living alarm systems. "All teams hold position," Chen ordered. "Adebayo, can you determine the resonance pattern?" "Working on it, but..." Her transmission cut off in a burst of static. Kovac tracked movement at the facility's main entrance, crystalline figures emerging, distinctly different from the male warriors they'd encountered previously. These were sleeker, their surfaces constantly shifting like liquid crystal, internal lights forming complex patterns reminiscent of neural networks. "Shatterglass warriors," Kovac breathed, recalling Vextar's fearful description. The female Kentari moved with predatory grace, heads tilting as they scanned the darkened desert. Unlike their male counterparts, they didn't rely solely on technological detection. They were actively hunting, using multiple sensory inputs. One paused, crystalline head turning directly toward Kovac's position despite her thermal camouflage. "They can see us," she warned, shifting her rifle microscopically. The Kentari female raised a hand, crystalline fingers elongating into razor-sharp projections, then suddenly jerked backward as a resonance charge detonated near the facility's power core. Adebayo had created the diversion they needed. "All units execute," Chen commanded. "Primary objective, disable the extraction apparatus. Secondary objective, capture intact crystalline technology for analysis." Kovac lined up her first shot, targeting the junction where the facility's main power conduits merge. The custom resonance round left her rifle with barely a whisper, striking the crystalline node with perfect precision. Instead of shattering, the crystal absorbed the impact. "Negative effect," she reported, adjusting quickly for a second shot. "They've adapted the structure." Across the battlefield, similar reports flooded the comm as Earth's forces encountered unexpected resistance. The female Kentari moved with strategic coordination their male counterparts had lacked, anticipating human tactics and countering effectively. Captain Al-Salih's voice cut through the chaos. Their neural network is more sophisticated. They're sharing information in real time across all warriors. Each encounter teaches them all simultaneously. Zhang, who had been assigned to Al-Salih's infiltration team, suddenly broke radio silence, her voice startling everyone who knew of her years-long mutism. "Resonance cascade," she said clearly. "Not individual targets. The whole structure vibrates at harmonizing frequencies. It must be disrupted at all nodes simultaneously." The unexpected communication momentarily silenced the channel before Chen responded. "Zhang, clarify. They are all connected," Zhang continued, her voice carrying the weight of certainty. "Like crystal singing bowls creating sympathetic vibrations. Break the harmony. Break their coordination." Al-Salih's breath caught audibly. She's right. Their entire tactical advantage comes from synchronized neural pathways. If we could create interference across multiple frequency bands simultaneously. "Adebayo," Chen called. "Can you reconfigure the resonance charges?" "Already on it," came the reply. "Distributing new detonation codes now." Kovac received the updated targeting parameters, quickly adjusting her ammunition's frequency modulators. Across the battlefield, all teams synchronized their weapons to create a disruptive interference pattern that would cascade through the Kentari neural network. As she lined up her shot on the now-identified primary resonance node, Kovac spotted a familiar figure approaching the facility's central spire, Colonel Chen herself, moving with purpose directly toward the heart of enemy territory. "Ghost Actual, you're exposed," Kovac warned. "Some missions require direct engagement," Chen replied simply. "Prepare for synchronized strike on my mark. And Major, if this goes wrong, you'll find everything you need to know about the Kentari in my personal files, including what Zhang discovered 5 years ago." Kovac's finger tensed on the trigger as Chen reached the facility's entrance, standing in plain sight before the assembled Shatterglass warriors. 3. Chen began the countdown. 2. 1. Execute. #Part 7. The Empire Strikes Back. The resonance cascade rippled through the Sahara facility in concentric waves of destructive harmony. Crystalline structures vibrated, fractured, and collapsed as precisely calibrated frequencies disrupted the Kentari neural network. The Shatterglass warriors surrounding Colonel Chen froze mid-motion, their internal lights flickering chaotically as the synchronized attack severed their connection to the collective. For 17 seconds, victory seemed assured. Then the sky tore open above the facility. The Empress ship descended through the rift, a massive crystalline structure that dwarfed all previous Kentari vessels. Unlike the angular warships, this craft resembled an immense geode, its surface comprised of countless faceted chambers glowing with internal radiance. As it approached, a single focused beam of coherent energy lanced down, enveloping the facility and all warriors within its perimeter. "They're recalibrating," Al-Salih warned, her neural interface detecting the shift in Kentari communications. "The Empress is manually resetting their network frequency." Across the battlefield, the Shatterglass warriors reactivated simultaneously, their crystalline forms briefly liquefying before reforming with altered structural patterns. They were adapting in real time. Major Kovac watched in horror as the warriors surrounding Chen resumed movement, their forms now immune to the resonance frequencies that had briefly incapacitated them. "Ghost Actual, immediate extraction required," she urged, already calculating impossible shot trajectories that might create an escape path. Chen's voice remained calm over the comm. "Negative, Major. Continue with secondary objectives." The Kentari female that appeared to be leading the warriors approached Chen. Unlike the others, her crystalline form contained swirls of iridescent color that shifted with each movement. She extended a hand that morphed into what resembled a translucent blade. Chen stood her ground, unarmed, as the blade stopped millimeters from her throat. "You command these warriors," the Kentari female stated, her voice unlike the male aliens, melodic and multi-toned, as if multiple voices spoke in harmony. "I do." You understand the failure of your attack. I understand that you've temporarily countered our approach, Chen corrected, but adaptation goes both ways. The Kinteri leader's form rippled with what might have been amusement. You are the first species in 17 conquests to exploit our operational blind spot. This interests us. As they conversed, Operation Valkyrie teams worldwide received new orders directly from Secretary Blackwood. Immediate disengagement and retreat to secondary positions. The Empress ship had deployed smaller vessels to every battlefield, systematically countering human tactics. In Rio de Janeiro, Lieutenant Adebayo's team found themselves surrounded, cut off from extraction. "We need immediate air support," she requested, her remaining squad defending a strategic choke point near the Kinteri water extraction machinery built into Guanabara Bay. "Negative on air support," came the response. "All aerial assets have been neutralized. Hold position." The Kinteri pressed their advantage, liquid crystal warriors flowing through barricades that would have stopped their male counterparts. Adebayo watched 3 of her operatives fall before making the call to surrender, prioritizing her team's survival over the mission. Back in the Sahara, the Kinteri leader circled Chen slowly. "Your species' females possess strategic minds equal to males. This contradicts all our biological studies. Perhaps your studies were incomplete," Chen suggested, maintaining eye contact despite the aliens' intimidating proximity. "Or perhaps your own society's structure influences your perceptions more than you realize." The crystals within the Kinteri female briefly pulsed with a deeper hue. "You imply bias in our scientific methodology." "Interesting." She gestured toward the facility. "Come. The Empress wishes to understand your species more thoroughly before final processing begins." As Chen was escorted inside, Kovic maintained her position, watching helplessly as her commander disappeared into the alien structure. "Ghost Actual is compromised," she reported. "Request permission to initiate Lazarus Protocol." Secretary Blackwood's response was immediate. "Authorized. All Ghost Wolves converge on Headquarters Alternate. Prepare for Phase 3. Halfway across the world, Zhang and Al-Sali had reached their extraction point when Al-Sali suddenly collapsed, blood streaming from her ears and nose. Her neural interface glowed with unnatural brightness as she convulsed. "Something's happening," she gasped between seizures. "They're broadcasting directly into my interface. I can see. Oh God." Zhang held her steady, eyes questioning. "The Empress," Al-Sali whispered, her eyes wide with terror and wonder. "She's not what we thought. None of this is what we thought." She grabbed Zhang's arm with desperate intensity. "They're not invading, Wei. They're running." As Operation Valkyrie forces retreated worldwide, satellites detected massive energy buildup in the Empress ship. Whatever was coming next would determine the fate of both species. In the depths of the Kinteri facility, Colonel Chen was brought before a chamber unlike any she'd seen. A vast crystalline cathedral space where thousands of floating crystal fragments orbited a central figure of breathtaking complexity. The Empress did not resemble her warriors. She was a living constellation of interconnected crystal structures, constantly shifting and reforming. And standing beside the alien ruler, monitoring equipment with apparent familiarity, was Chen's daughter Lisa. "Mom," she said, turning with an expression of mixed relief and apprehension. "There's something you need to understand about the Kinteri. Everything we thought we knew is wrong." The crystalline cathedral pulsed with living light as Colonel Chen approached her daughter. Lisa stood confidently beside holographic displays, showing star charts, molecular structures, and what appeared to be waveform analyses of Earth's oceans. "You were supposed to evacuate with the other students," Chen said, professional composure masking maternal concern. "I was exactly where I needed to be," Lisa replied. "My xenobiology research team was studying deep-sea microorganisms that metabolize heavy metals when the Kinteri arrived. They didn't attack us, Mom. They requested our help." The Empress's crystalline constellation shifted, fragments realigning to form a roughly humanoid configuration. When she spoke, The sound came from everywhere at once, a chorus of harmonic tones that the facility somehow translated into comprehensible speech. "Your daughter understands what your warriors could not," the Empress said. "We harvest because we must survive. We conquer because we are pursued." Lisa activated a holographic display showing a region of space beyond the galactic rim. They call it the Void Cascade, a wave of nothing, consuming everything in its path. Stars, planets, matter itself, all broken down to subatomic particles. "A weapon?" Chen asked. "A natural phenomenon," Lisa corrected, "or at least they believe so. It consumed the Kentari homeworld system 50 of our years ago. They've been running ever since, harvesting resources to sustain their species and stay ahead of the cascade." The Empress's form pulsed with what might have been sorrow. 17 worlds have provided temporary sanctuary. Each time, we take what we require and continue our journey. Some species join us, others cannot. You could have explained, asked for cooperation. Chen's voice hardened. Instead, you invaded. Previous experience proved cooperation unlikely. The Kentari leader who had escorted Chen interjected. Species protect their resources instinctively when facing extinction. So you decided conquest was more efficient, Chen concluded. The Empress's fragments reconfigured. Our males are programmed for conquest, their crystalline structures optimized for direct action rather than nuanced negotiation. It is regrettable but necessary for survival. Lisa placed a hand on her mother's arm. The Kentari females contain the collective memory and scientific knowledge of their civilization. The warriors are essentially specialized drones, operating on simplified parameters. Like the gender division of certain Earth insects, Chen mused, understanding dawning. But that still doesn't justify. An alarm cut through their conversation as displays showed Major Kovic's team breaching the facility's lower levels. Simultaneously, the Empress ship detected incoming hypersonic missiles launched from hidden human installations. Your species continues fighting even as extinction approaches, the Kentari leader observed. Admirable but futile. The Empress expanded her crystalline constellation, surrounding them in a three-dimensional display of the Void Cascade's advance. In approximately 7 of your years, the cascade will reach this solar system. Nothing technological can stop it. We have tried. Chen studied the projection, military training merging with the instincts of a mother who had raised a scientist. What about the trace elements you're harvesting from our oceans? Lisa answered. The microorganisms in our deep-sea vents produce enzymes that can temporarily stabilize the Kentari crystalline structure against the cascade's effects. They're not just taking our water. They need these specific biological compounds. Can they be synthesized? Chen asked. That's what we've been working on, Lisa replied. If we succeed, the Kentari wouldn't need to drain entire oceans. They could produce the compounds sustainably. Chen's comm unit activated with Secretary Blackwood's voice. Colonel, our analysis of Captain El Salih's neural download confirms a genuine threat. The Void Cascade is real. Recommend immediate diplomatic engagement. Chen looked from her daughter to the alien Empress, decades of military training warring with the undeniable evidence before her. I'll need guarantees. Immediate cessation of hostilities, return of all prisoners, and full technological exchange. You believe you can negotiate from a position of strength? The Kentari leader asked incredulously. I believe we can negotiate from a position of mutual necessity, Chen countered. Your species needs our biological resources. We need your technology to prepare for the cascade. And we both need to stop wasting resources fighting each other. The Empress's form contracted, crystals drawing closer together in what Lisa whispered was a gesture of consideration. Finally, she responded. The terms are acceptable. We have not encountered a species capable of adaptation at your speed since the Meroxy. What happened to them? Chen asked. They chose extinction rather than cooperation with us, the Empress stated simply. Their pride prevented coexistence. Chen's gaze hardened. Humanity's pride takes different forms. Our adaptability is our strength. 6 months later, Colonel Chen stood on the observation deck of the joint human-Kinteri research vessel Harmony, watching Earth recede in the distance. The ship, incorporating both crystalline technology and human engineering, led a fleet of exploratory vessels seeking resources and potential allies against the approaching cascade. Major Kovic joined her at the viewport, her sniper's scope now reconfigured as a deep space observation tool. Still hard to believe we went from fighting them to working with them in half a year. Situational adaptation, Chen replied. The true test of any soldier. Throughout the ship, human and Kinteri crews worked side by side. Captain Al-Sali, her neural interface permanently modified by Kinteri technology, served as communications liaison between species. Lieutenant Adebayo led a mixed team developing resonance weapons that might affect the cascade's quantum structure. And Sergeant Zhang, her silence finally explained by her early contact with a crashed Kinteri scout, trained human specialists in crystalline technology. In the primary laboratory, Lisa Chen and a female Kinteri scientist had just achieved stable synthesis of the oceanic compounds, ensuring both species survival without planetary-scale resource extraction. As the fleet accelerated toward the stars, Colonel Chen reflected on how the most lethal women soldiers Earth had ever produced had ultimately saved humanity, not through combat prowess alone, but through their capacity to recognize when to fight, and when to forge unexpected alliances in the face of greater threats. The Void Cascade still approached, implacable and unstoppable. But now, neither Earth nor the Kinteri faced it alone.